The next item on the agenda is the information item on CNSC staff assessment of the industry's disposition of issues raised during the Bruce and Darlington licensing hearing of 2015, as outlined in CMD 17M14 and 17M14.A. Mark, over to you.
Yes, so I will start with a few contextual remarks. We have been trying to reach Dr. Nijawan by phone and by email this morning, and he had mentioned he would join us, so we're still going to work on trying to reach him since those issues have been raised by him. So as the President just alluded to, this presentation is a follow-up on discussions that took place during the April 2015 Bruce and November 2015 Darlington Commission hearings. In the context of the Bruce hearing, the NPP industry and Dr. Nijawan had agreed to meet to address the numerous technical questions and issues Dr. Nijawan was raising in his interventions. The same questions were also raised in the context of the Darlington hearing and the Commission, in both of these licensing decisions, asked staff to update it on the progress of those discussions and on the work of the Can-Do Owners Group respecting these issues. So what we are dealing with today is the assessment by the CNSC staff of the report of the Can-Do Owners Group that we refer to as the COG report regarding Dr. Nijawan's 34 questions. Separately to the COG-Dr. Nijawan interactions, CNSC staff retained the services of third-party consultants to assist with their review of the COG report. The two consultants are Dr. Luxett from McMaster University and Leeds that are represented by Mark Sartorius and Eric Leeds that are U.S. specialists. These reviews were to provide an external review of whether the CNSC staff exercised due diligence concerning the topics raised by Dr. Nijawan and how these topics were addressed by industry and the CNSC. Their presentations will be incorporated as part of the CNSC staff slide presentations. Following the CNSC staff presentation, there will be presentations by the Can-Do Owners Group and then by industry, followed by a presentation by Dr. Nijawan. More importantly, and that's why we were asked the presentation to be concise, there will then be a question period where no time limit has been ascribed to discuss these matters. Mr. President.
Thank you, Mark. So I'm hoping, at least for us, giving all the expertise in front of us to get to some consensus, whether there is remaining, lingering safety issues that require some further attention or not. So some of those issues have been around for a while. So we're looking forward to maybe come to some sort of a consensus about the way ahead. So, Dr. Nijawan, I'm still hoping that you are with us. Okay, so we will start with CNSC staff for their presentation. And I understand that Mr. Frappier will make the presentation. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning again to yourself and the members of the Commission. My name is Jerry Frappier, for the record, and I'm the Director General of the Directorate of Power Reactor Regulations here at the CNSC. Before you today is CMD 17M14, which is the CNSC staff update to the Commission on the action placed on staff to report on progress towards the resolution of issues raised by the intervener, Dr. Sunil Nijawan, during the Bruce Power relicensing hearings held in April 2015. With me today is Dr. David Newland, Director General of the Directorate of Assessment and Analysis, Dr. Hatem Kujawa, Lead Technical Advisor in the Director of Power Reactor Regulations, along with CNSC's directors and specialists, third-party reviewers contracted by the CNSC, and licensing staff. CNSC staff have, as was mentioned, have contracted external experts to conduct third-party reviews of the technical aspects of the CNSC assessment, as well as the regulatory approach taken by the CNSC. and they will present a little bit later. The CNSC third-party experts are here and will speak to their findings as part of the staff presentation. The presentation outline follows the CMD structure that was submitted to the Commission. We will start with a brief background to provide you with context. We will look at the actions taken by the licensees under the Can-Do Owners Group, or COG for short, to disposition the interveners' comments. And then we will go over the CNSC staff assessment of Dr. Nijawan's questions and the dispositions provided by COG. The CNSC staff assessment will include presentations by the external parties, Dr. John Luxett and Mr. Eric Leeds. I will conclude the staff presentation with overall conclusions, CNSC staff recommendations, and the steps moving forward. And with that, I'd like to now turn the presentation over to Dr. Khawaja.
Well, thank you, Mr. Frappier. Good morning, Mr. President and members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Hatem Khawaja. I'm speaking to you today as the project lead for this CMD 17M14. So during the relicensing hearing for Bruce Power, held April 14 to the 16th in 2015, Dr. Suni Nijawan presented 34 technical questions that were raised previously in his intervention under CMD 15-H2.145 A and B. At the same meeting, Bruce Power senior management committed to meet and discuss the issues raised by the intervener and to agree on a path to disposition all of his questions. Bruce Power staff met with Dr. Nijawan on April 30th, 2015 to review the 34 questions and develop a path towards resolution. CNSC staff did not participate in this meeting. Given the generic nature of the questions raised for Can-Dos, Bruce Power requested the Can-Do Owners Group, or COG, to examine and disposition the technical questions raised by Dr. Nijawan. In response, COG initiated a joint industry project and met with the intervener. COG then carried out the review of all questions and produced a final report on their disposition of all 34 questions. Dr. Nijawan is the primary recipient of the COG deliverables, and he received COG final report for his review and comments. He agreed to provide written responses confirming disposition or else provide a technical explanation. Copies of the COG reports were also provided to the CNSC staff for information. CNSC staff were not part of the discussions between Dr. Nijawan and COG, nor did they take part in the COG dispositioning process. CNSC staff did conduct an independent assessment of the COG final report. The review is documented as a CNSC staff internal report. In addition, CNSC staff retained external experts to review the issues and CNSC staff actions. These 30-part reviewers will present to you the results of their assessments shortly. When COG met with Dr. Nijawan, both parties agreed that 8 of the questions in 4 key areas were of major concern to him. They agreed to a process with 2 phases. The first, phase 1, would address the 4 key areas of Dr. Nijawan's questions, and in the second phase, the remaining questions would be addressed. COG completed the phase 1 report on the 8 questions in 4 key areas in November 2015. The second phase, addressing the remaining questions, was completed in October 2016. The COG final report, including disposition of all issues raised by the intervener, including the 8 questions in 4 key areas and the remaining 26 questions. COG sent copies of both the phase 1 report and the final report to the CNSC staff for their information. CNSC staff completed a detailed assessment of the 8 main technical questions grouped into 4 key areas you see here. So area number 1 is the bleed condenser relief valve. 2 is the hydrogen deuterium production and passive autocatalytic recombiners, or PARS for short.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm told that Dr. Nijuan is now connected. Dr. Nijuan, can you hear us?
I can, sir.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Please proceed.
So I'll continue with area number 3 is the modular accident analysis program modeling for CANDO, or MAP CANDO for short. And the 4th area is in-vessel retention. CNSC staff also completed a review of the remaining 26 questions to evaluate the safety significance. Copies of the CNSC staff final assessment of the disposition, along with copy of the CMD 17M14, were provided to both COG and Dr. Nijuan on January 22nd, 2017. So if we start with the 4 key topics. Key topic number 1, which is the bleed condenser relief valves. Dr. Nijuan's questions related to the bleed condenser relief valves were first raised in 2001 and repeatedly for the past 15 years. These have been investigated by the CNSC staff and the industry. The bleed condenser relief valves provide pressure relief for the primary heat transport system. Dr. Nijuan questions the capacity of these valves and claims they provide inadequate relief for long-term loss of heat sink accidents, such as an extended loss of all electrical power. He also questions if the requirements of the ASME boiler and pressure vessel code were met in the valve testing. In 2014, CNSC retained the services of third-party subject matter experts to evaluate the intervener's submission on ASME code requirements. This independent evaluation was posted on the CNSC website and was made available to Dr. Nijuan. CNSC disposition of all relief valve-related questions was also made available in a technical paper posted on a CNSC website in 2015. A link to the technical paper abstract is provided in this slide. Dr. Nijuan's comments and the resulting COG disposition do not provide any new information to affect the CNSC staff position, as discussed in this technical paper. CNSC staff remains satisfied that the relief capacity is adequate for all design basis accidents, and the safety case for operating CANDO plants is robust. On the second key topic area, which is the hydrogen deuterium production and passive autocatalytic recombiners, or PARS effectiveness. PARS are designed to keep deuterium and hydrogen concentration low enough to prevent destructive burns or combustion in containment during a severe accident. They passively recombine deuterium and hydrogen with oxygen in the containment. All licensees of Canadian nuclear power plants have installed PARS, either before or after Fukushima. So several levels of redundancy were designed into these PARS to account for any uncertainties. Most testing of PARS is performed without deuterium. It is done using recombination of hydrogen with oxygen. Research shows a very small influence in the differences between hydrogen or deuterium on PARS effectiveness. Further, follow-up full-scale experimental work is being carried out at Canadian Nuclear Laboratories, or CNL for short. Dr. Nijuan questions the performance of the PARS because testing is performed without deuterium. He claims that the difference in physical properties from hydrogen leads to a much lower recombination rate. This claim is not supported based on all the best evidence available. Dr. Nijuan also questions the lack of specific models for steel oxidation in severe accident analysis, because during severe accidents, deuterium and hydrogen can be produced from oxidation of hot steel components. The dominant source of hydrogen deuterium during a severe accident will be within the reactor core, where the hottest components are. the components that Dr. Nijuan refers to are outside the reactor core and are relatively small contributors to hydrogen production. For the third key topic area regarding the Modular Accident Analysis Program, or MAP-CANDO modeling, MAP-CANDO is the computer code used to model severe accident progression for CANDO reactors. Uncertainties in the MAP-CANDO modeling is compensated for with conservatism in the design, strengthening in the defense in depth, such as the installation of the emergency mitigating equipment, and the implementation of severe accident management guidelines, or SAMG. Dr. Nijuan questions the capability of this code and the physical models incorporated into it. CNSC staff find, however, that the COG responses to the MAP-CANDO modeling topics reflect the current best practices with respect to severe accident modeling. And MAP modeling code is fit for purpose, which means the level of detail of the models used by the code is consistent with the level of accuracy needed for the results. Now for key topic area number 4, which is in-vessel retention. In-vessel retention refers to the ability to retain molten core debris inside the calendar vessel after core collapse. In-vessel retention is only important in events which progress to core melting. In other words, only if all safety systems fail to stop accident progression, including failure of the emergency mitigating equipment that was installed in response to the Fukushima accident. Dr. Nijuan questions the robustness of the calendar vessel during a severe accident. The structural integrity of the calendar vessel was addressed as part of the lessons learned from the Fukushima nuclear accident. Licensees of Canadian nuclear power plants identified practical and concrete plant modifications, such as additional capacity for overpressure relief by modifying the design for the shield tank overpressure protection, installation of the Calandria vault or the shield tank coolant makeup systems for in-vessel retention, and installation of emergency mitigating equipment to prevent progression to severe accidents. Industry is also carrying out experimental work under COG and CNL to measure the critical heat flux on the external surfaces of the Calandria vessel. In addition to the assessment of the 8 major questions in 4 key areas, CNSC staff completed a review of the remaining 26 questions to ensure no issues of safety and significance were overlooked. There are 2 questions that CNSC staff requested updates on, both of which relate to previous actions under the CNSC action plan and were investigated by the industry. These updates relate to source term of combustible gases and containment during severe accident, and instrumentation survivability for monitoring capability in post-accident condition. Both of these update requests are of low safety significance. In the CNSC staff review of the 26 remaining questions, none was found to be of safety significance requiring regulatory action, and no issues of safety significance were overlooked. A summary of the CNSC staff assessment of the COG disposition of Dr. Nijuan's full list of 34 questions and a CNSC staff position on the safety significance of the issues raised is presented in Appendix C of the CMD 17 and 14. Now, to recap the CNSC staff safety assessment, CNSC staff agree with the COG disposition of the topics raised by Dr. Nijuan. The requests made by CNSC staff in their assessment of COG's disposition are related to either ongoing confirmatory research carried out by the industry or the need for some documentation to fully support the basis for industry disposition of the issues raised. All of these are considered of low safety significance and will form part of the regulatory oversight through either the safety control areas on safety analysis or follow up on station-specific Fukushima action items. As Mr. Frappier and Monsieur Leblanc mentioned in their opening remarks, CNSC engaged 2 third-party experts to review the CNSC staff technical assessment as well as review the regulatory process used to disposition the interveners' questions. Dr. John Luxett is a professor at the Department of Engineering and Physics at McMaster University and Senior Industrial Research Chair in Nuclear Safety Analysis, with world-recognized expertise in can-do design and safety analysis. Dr. Luxett performed an assessment of the technical merit of Dr. Nijuan's interventions and the responses of COG and CNSC staff reviews. Dr. Luxett will present his major findings and recommendations. CNSC staff also obtained the services of Mr. Eric Leeds and Mr. Mark Sartorius to perform an assessment of CNSC's regulatory processes and actions in connection with the interventions of Dr. Nijuan. Mr. Leeds is a former director of nuclear reactor nuclear reactor regulations, and Mr. Sartorius is a former executive director for operations, both at the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission or U.S. NRC. So both Mr. Leeds and Mr. Sartorius have the necessary background and extensive experience to assess and compare CNSC regulatory practices against those of the U.S. NRC and internationally.